Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. So today I have decided to make a short video on some of the fundamental concepts of the chapter inheritance. So I hope you can use this video as a quick revision or if you want to brush up on your basics. So the syllabus that we will be focusing on is mentioned here. So if I highlight, I'll be showing you what exactly we'll be learning. We'll be learning how to draw a genetic diagram to determine the phenotypic ratios. We'll also learn how to draw a Punnett squares in order to find the different types of genotypes. Now, the difference between genotype and phenotype is that genotypes are a set of genes, okay? So basically, they are the genes that describe a particular trait. Whereas phenotype are the physical expressions that we see or the characteristics that we observe, which of course is determined by the genotype. So basically, two siblings could have the same phenotype but not necessarily the same genotype. So we'll be discussing more about this on the upcoming slides. So these are some of the definitions that you might be asked about in your paper 4, so make sure you learn them. So first we have the chromosome. So a chromosome is a long coiled molecule of DNA that carries genetic information. So if we look at the picture, when we look inside a cell, so the lines that we see inside the nucleus are the chromosome. Alright? But if we look deeper, we'll actually see that these chromosomes are actually paired up. So what that basically means is that one of these chromosomes comes from our father and the other comes from our mother, and that's why we have paired chromosomes. So you must remember that human beings have 23 pairs of chromosomes, as you can see in this diagram here. Or you could also say human beings have 22 pairs of chromosomes and another additional pair of chromosome that determines our gender, as you can see in this diagram over here. Okay, but in total it is 23 pairs. So make sure you remember that, because sometimes they ask you questions based on this, especially on your paper 2 MCQ questions. Alright, so moving along, if we look at a single pair of chromosome, we'll see that there are genes along these chromosomes, along both the chromosomes. So let me use my pointer again. So basically, if we look here, so this could be a gene, this could be a gene, all right, and this could be actually showing different traits. So for example, this gene could actually determine our body height, whereas this gene over here might determine the color of our hair. All right. So basically, the genes code for different traits, and they are located at different part of along the chromosomes. So what then is alleles? So alleles, as you can see in this diagram, are located on the same location of the chromosomes, in a paired chromosomes. Okay, so they're in the same location, and more importantly, they code for the same trait. All right, so basically this allele could be for your eye color. Okay, so now it might be easier for you to understand the definition. So you see, a gene is a length of DNA on a chromosome that codes for the production of a specific protein. All right, whereas allele is just a version of a gene. So genes are located at different locations along the chromosome, whereas alleles are actually located on the same location of the chromosomes, and they code for the same trait. Alright, so moving along, let's have a further discussion on the allele. So basically we have dominant allele and recessive allele. So remember, one of the alleles actually come from the father and the other comes from the mother. Alright, so it is possible that both of them are dominant alleles, one of them dominant and the other recessive, or both recessive alleles. Dominant alleles are expressed even if the recessive allele are there. Alright, so you can think the dominant allele is the big boss, whereas the recessive allele does not express itself in the presence of dominant allele. So if there is a dominant allele, the recessive allele will not express. Okay, it will only express if there is no dominant allele present. Alright, so usually we express dominant allele by using capital letter, whereas we express recessive allele by using small letter. So let's look at this diagram. Let's try to understand this. So look at the heading of each of these columns. So just like we said that we have one allele from the father, other from the mother. So if we discuss about this row, so this is just one possible combination. Alright, so we're discussing about the color of the eye. So basically, if you get the dominant allele from the father and the recessive allele from the mother, this will be your genotype, consisting of a capital B and a small b. Alright, however, remember that the capital B represents the black color and the small b represents the blue color. So we can see we have one dominant and one recessive. So ultimately the dominant is going to be expressed. Alright, and that will actually give or finalize the color of our eye, which is black. In another scenario, or another possible scenario, we could get a recessive allele from the father and another recessive allele from the mother. So in that case, this will be our genotype, consisting of small b and small b. And in this case, we are not seeing any dominant allele present, and therefore the recessive allele will be expressed. And if you remember, the recessive allele represents the color blue, so ultimately the offspring will get blue eyes in this case. Another situation, we might get dominant allele from both the father and the mother. In that case, this will be our genotype, and obviously the color of the eye will be black, because ultimately both of them are dominant allele. Even if there was just one dominant allele, that would have been good enough to determine the black color of the eye. So I hope now you are very clear about the difference between genotype and phenotype. One thing to consider, sometimes there could be a case where there's codominance. Alright, so for example, in flowers there could be two dominant allele at the same time. So for example, we can use the word W to determine the color of the petals. So let's say it represents white, and we could represent R to determine the color red. So if, for example, the allele of that particular flower has or looks like this, W and R, so which color will be expressed? So in this case we have two dominant allele, and each of that allele actually represents a different color. So the answer is the flower will show both of them. So the flower will be pink, which is a mixture of two. Or it is also possible that some of the petals will be white, other petals will be red in the same flower. So this case is called as codominance. So in codominance is a situation where no allele is recessive than the other, or you could say where both the alleles are equally dominant. Okay, so both of them will be expressed. Alright, moving on. So you also need to know what is meant by homozygous and heterozygous. So basically, if both the alleles are the same type of letter, either capital letter or small letter, they will be called homozygous. Alright, so in this case we are seeing that we have, out of 4 offsprings, 2 of them has homozygous alleles. Alright, so the main thing is both the alleles will be the same. Whereas for heterozygous, one of them will be dominant, the other recessive. Okay, so this one is homozygous dominant, this one is homozygous recessive. And for heterozygous, obviously there is no question about just dominant or recessive, because we have allele from both. Okay, time to practice. So in this question here, it's mentioned that in some breeds of cattle, hair color shows codominance. So I hope you remember what I taught you about codominance. So codominance is a situation where both the alleles are expressed. Okay, the coats may be red, white, or roan, which is a mixture of red and white. So what are the expected phenotypes when a parent with red coat is crossed with a parent with roan coat? Alright, now we can use a genetic diagram to find out the answer, or we could use a Punnett square. Alright, so I'll teach you both. So let's draw the genetic diagram first. So let me get a pen. Alright, so for a genetic diagram, we just need to write the alleles for both the parents on the same line. Okay, so I'll just write the name genetic diagram. Alright, please excuse my handwriting because I'm just using my mouse and not using the pen device that I have. So basically, let's write the alleles. One of the parent has alleles HR, HR. Alright, so this is the first parent. The second parent, the alleles is HR and HW. Alright, so basically in genetic diagram we have to match each allele with the other two alleles of the other parent. So if we start from here, HR, so let's match it with the first allele of the partner, and that will give us HR, HR. Okay, so this HR from the father, the other HR from the mother. Okay, we're just assuming this is our father, the first parent is the father. Okay, just an assumption. All right, now what about the other possibility? Again, this time we're going to combine with the second allele of the partner. So we get HR and HW. Okay, done. Now we start working with the second allele of the first partner. Okay, so we match it again with the first allele of this partner. So we get HR, HR, and then Okay, we get H R and HW. Okay, all done. So these are the possible combinations of their offsprings. All right, the genotypes of the offsprings. But the question does not ask for genotypes, rather the phenotypes. All right, so let's write down the phenotypes below each of these offsprings. So basically, if we have R, obviously it's red. If we have the R allele, we have R and W, it's neither red or white, it's a mixture of both. So basically it's called roan. Okay, so we'll just write roan. Okay, we have HR, that is red, and again HRHW, that is roan. Okay, now it's time to find out the answer. So the question asks, what are the expected phenotypes when a parent with a red coat is crossed with a parent with a roan coat? So we can see out of the 4 offsprings, 2 of them has red coats and the other 2 has roan. So basically 2 reds and 2 roans. So that means half of all the offsprings are red and the other half is roan. So obviously the answer is option A. Alright. Now let's redo this question by using a Punnett square. Alright. So for a Punnett square, let me just write it here. Punnett square. Okay. So what you do is you just use boxes, okay, rather than using these lines that we have used in genetic diagram. So we put the alleles of one of the parents at the top. So it is H, R, H, R, okay, and the alleles of the second parent vertically on the other side. So it is H, R and H, W, okay, and then we just draw lines around them to make them look like boxes. Very simple. Alright, so now we're going to just cross them and write the genotypes of each of the 4 offsprings. So first we have HR, HR. So we are just matching the horizontal alleles with the vertical alleles, just like you do when you draw coordinates in a graph. Okay. So in the first box we have HR, HR. So we can also write the phenotype below this genotype. So the phenotype is red. That's the color of this cattle. Okay, next we have HWHR, or you could also say HRHW, doesn't matter, the order isn't important. So let's just write HRHW, and obviously we know that is codominant, that means showing both red and white color, so that color is called roan. Okay, this box here will have HR, HR, that represents red, and then HR from here, HW from here, so we'll have HR and HW. So again that is wrong. Alright, so the calculation is easy. As you can see, out of these 4 offsprings, 2 of them are red and the other 2 are roan. Alright, so the question could ask what is the ratio of the red cattle to the roan cattle. Okay, you'll see sometimes if they ask you about Punnett squares, they actually also refer it to finding out some ratios. So what's the ratio of red to roan? Very simple. We have 2 red, okay, and 2 roan. Okay, so this 2 and this 2 crosses out each other. Ultimately we have the ratio is 1:1. That means the ratio of red cattle to roan cattle is 1:1. Okay. Alright, so I hope now you have learned how to draw a genetic diagram and how to draw up a Punnett square. So it's time for you to test yourself, to test your skills. So basically for MCQs, I suggest my students to finish it within 2 minutes maximum. Alright, even though in the exam you'll get lesser than that, but let's just say for practice I give you more time. Okay, so let's see if you can find the answer in 2 minutes. Okay. Alright, you should be done by now. So if your answer is D, you're correct. If it's not, then unfortunately you're wrong. So let me quickly show you why D is the answer. It's not a difficult question actually, easy one. So here red flower is always homozygous, and if you remember, homozygous means both the alleles are of the same letter, and white flower is also homozygous. Okay, so in that case what we can do, we can just for our rough work we can represent R as red and a small r to represent white. Okay, so basically the alleles for a red flower would be R and R, because it's always homozygous. It cannot be a small r and a big R. On the other hand, the white flower would be small r and small r, okay, because it is also homozygous. Okay, now what they're doing here is they're crossing a red and a white flower together. Okay, so pink flowers are heterozygous. That means pink flowers might have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Okay, it will have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. It will never be homozygous. That means it won't be both capital R or both small r. Okay, it is always heterozygous. All right, now let's see what will happen if we cross a red and a white flower together. Okay, so let me write the phenotype here. This is a red flower, this is a white flower. Okay, and a pink flower must look like this. Okay, one dominant allele, one recessive allele. This is what a pink flower should look like. Okay, so you can use either a genetic diagram or a Punnett square. It's totally up to you. All right, so let's just use a genetic diagram. Okay, so let's see. So first we get this and then this. I'll just go very fast here because I've already explained the concept behind this before. Okay, so if it looks all confusing to you, obviously you can use a Punnett square as well. Okay, we have R. Okay, and then the last one we have R. Okay, so as we can see, all four of them are pink ones, okay, because they have, all four of them has a dominant allele and a recessive allele. Okay, so obviously our answer will be D. Okay, 100% of the offspring will be pink. Alright, so we see none of the offspring will have either just the red color or just the white color. All of them will have a pink color. Alright, now the questions we have discussed here are some of the easiest one. Okay, they are actually from actual past question paper, but they are amongst the easy ones. So you might get more challenging ones in your exam. For example, there might be a question from sickle cell anemia. All right. Um, there could be questions from blood group related allele. All right. Or there could be a question from color blindness, where this affects only one of the uh, allele. All right. It's usually called a sex-linked disease. So those questions actually require a little bit more thinking, thoughts, okay, than this. So if you want videos on more challenging questions, please let us know in comment. Or if you think we can help you by providing regular tuition, please contact at this given number. All right, so we can either help you through one-on-one basis or through a small batch of 3 or 4 students. Okay, so do let us know if we can be of further help. Thank you very much for your time. Please share this video if you think it might be helpful for some of your friends.